Windows. Created by Microsoft and first released in 1985, Windows is the operating system billions rely on. But it didn't start powerful. The first Windows was a stiff graphical shell glued onto MS-DOS, slow, clunky, and painfully limited. And from there, it evolved through Windows 95, XP, 7, 8, 10, and now 11, each generation pushing it closer to the modern Windows we use today. It became the digital default because it agreed to run on almost any computer, school PCs, office machines, gaming rigs, even ancient laptops. And the secret behind its dominance isn't beauty or simplicity, it's compatibility. Here's the part most people don't realize. Deep inside Windows, there are components written long before USB ports existed, yet they still influence how your modern apps behave today. That's the cost of trying to support everything, every era of tech, every company, every device. This flexibility makes Windows the king of software availability and a paradise for gamers, but it also opens cracks for viruses, system errors, and the occasional "why is this update taking 40 minutes" moment. Still, no matter how many alternatives exist, Windows remains the ecosystem almost every industry, school, and office quietly depends on. macOS. Built by Apple and introduced in 2001 as the successor to the classic macOS, macOS takes the opposite approach. Instead of trying to work with every device, it works with only one company's devices. And that single decision changes everything. Because Apple controls the hardware and the software, macOS can do things other systems can't, like squeezing surprising performance out of low-power chips or coordinating apps so smoothly that animations feel liquid. What shocks many people is that macOS is still built on foundations from the 1980s Next Step system, yet it feels modern because Apple builds on top of its strengths: stability, security, and clean design. But this polish comes with walls. You can't tweak much, you can't install it on any laptop you want, and you must live inside Apple's ecosystem whether you love it or not. Still, those limits are exactly why macOS feels so consistent. It's a system built not to be universal, but to be controlled. Linux. Launched in 1991 by Linus Torvalds, Linux is the operating system you don't see but can't live without. What began as a tiny hobby somehow ended up powering most of the modern world. Linux is the strangest operating system of all, because even if you've never installed it, you're using it right now. The websites you visit, the cloud services you rely on, the networks that move your messages around the world, Linux is everywhere. And here's the shocker. Linux powers over 96% of the top 1 million servers on Earth. It's open source, meaning anyone can read the code, modify it, improve it, or build their own version. That's why there are hundreds of distros, each with its own flavor. Linux is unbelievably stable and secure, which is why companies trust it to run their most important systems. But for everyday consumers, it can feel unfamiliar, and not every popular app supports it natively. It's the operating system that silently runs the modern internet while letting Windows and macOS fight for the spotlight. ChromeOS. Introduced by Google in 2009, ChromeOS makes a bold assumption that almost no traditional OS dared to make, that you're always online. Built around the Chrome browser, it strips the computer experience down to the essentials: web apps, cloud storage, simple settings, instant boot times. And that gamble worked better than anyone expected, especially in schools. But the surprise twist is that ChromeOS has grown beyond just a browser. It now runs Android apps and even certain Linux tools. Still, its entire philosophy is simplicity over power. It's perfect for people whose digital lives live in the cloud, but if you need heavy creative software or specialized programs, ChromeOS simply says, "That's not what I'm built for." Android. Released by Google in 2008 after acquiring Android Inc., Android became the world's most installed operating system. It dominates the planet not because it's perfect, but because it's flexible. When Apple locked iOS tightly to its own devices, Google went the opposite direction. They made Android open source and invited every phone manufacturer to build on top of it. This created an explosion of devices from every price range imaginable, from ultra-budget phones to foldable cutting-edge machines. Different brands customize Android differently. Updates roll out at uneven speeds, and two Android phones can feel like completely different worlds. The crazy part is, Android doesn't just run phones. It powers TVs, smartwatches, car dashboards, and even refrigerators. It's the operating system that conquered the world not by controlling everything, but by letting everyone else control it. iOS. Unveiled by Apple in 2007 alongside the first iPhone, iOS is built on one idea. If Apple controls everything, it can optimize everything. And that control produces real, visible results. iPhones get years of updates, apps launch faster, battery life feels consistent, and security remains one of the best in the industry. What really surprises people is that iOS often feels faster than Android, even with less RAM or smaller batteries, because the system is engineered tightly around Apple's chips. But this smoothness comes with clear limits. You can't customize much, you can't install apps outside the App Store, and you can't switch to cheaper hardware. For some people, those walls feel restrictive. For others, they're the reason iOS feels safe, simple, and reliable. It's a system designed not for maximum freedom, but for maximum consistency. Harmony OS. Introduced by Huawei in 2019, Harmony OS wasn't created because they wanted to, it was created because they had to. After restrictions cut them off from Google services, Huawei needed a replacement fast, and the result was Harmony OS. Built around a microkernel that's designed to be tiny, efficient, and extremely adaptable. The most fascinating part is Harmony OS is designed to let multiple devices, phones, TVs, watches, and IoT gadgets act like one giant unified system. In China, it's already a major player, but globally it struggles because app ecosystems outside the US and China develop very differently. Today, Harmony OS stands as one of the only real attempts to break the Android-iOS duopoly, born out of pressure, but growing through innovation. Solaris. Originally developed by Sun Microsystems and released in 1992, Solaris is the operating system you will almost never see, but it once powered parts of the early internet and still survives in certain high-stability enterprise servers. Built on Unix, Solaris was known for features that felt futuristic in the 90s: advanced networking, rock-solid stability, and the ability to run massive workloads for years without rebooting. Over time, Linux overshadowed it, largely because Linux was free and evolving faster. But Solaris didn't disappear. It just moved into the background, quietly running systems in banks, research labs, and industries where reliability matters more than popularity. It's the veteran OS that rarely gets mentioned but still sits behind critical infrastructure.